Sounds live. Good afternoon, fight fans. Welcome to the MMA Preamble UFC on Fox 23 edition. I'm Flying Brian J, and here with me for the first time on a pre-fight show is Wesley Riddle from All That MMA. What it up, Wes?
Oh, not a thing, man. Just hanging out here on campus, ready to talk some of the fights that we got tonight. Looking forward to a few of them, some of them not too much, but it's a pretty decent card. And thanks for having me on, I guess, my first pre-fight show that I'm doing with you.
Absolutely, man. Thanks a ton for joining me. So what we're going to do on the preamble is we're going to go over reasons to watch this fight card, reasons maybe not to watch the fight card. Wes and I are going to give our picks for each and every fight, starting at the top with Juliana, the Venezuelan Vixen Pena versus the Bullet, Valentina Shevchenko, and working our way down. And of course, above me here, I want you to vote. If you're on Facebook, we're also on YouTube right now. I want you to vote for who you think is going to win the main event. So, Wes, give me a couple of reasons why maybe you should watch this fight card.
Okay. I'll start by saying we'll go with the co-main event first. The co-main event, we have two of probably the best strikers in the welterweight division between Donald Cowboy Cerrone and Jorge Masvidal. I think this is one, if we don't see a finish early in the fight, that it's definitely going to be a fight of the night contender. Masvidal is a very crisp striker, and Cerrone is just a very, very powerful striker. Cerrone also has some tools that can make this fight interesting if the fight goes to the ground. So I think a good reason to watch this fight card is going to fall purposely in that fight. And also another fight I'd like to talk about that is probably going to be catching the eyes of many is the first fight that kicks off on Fox, and that is about between Bruce Leroy Caceres fighting Jason the Kid Knight. That's in the featherweight division, and that one's definitely going to bring some awesome stuff that we're going to see on the feet. Caceres put up a pretty good performance against Yair in his last outing, and Knight, his striking has evolved tremendously since where he started in the UFC, and he continues to grow and evolve as a mixed martial artist. So look out for those two fights. Two awesome reasons, I think, to watch this fight card. And also, I think some of the preliminary fights, we're going to see some knockouts and a couple submissions here and there. So it's going to be pretty entertaining from top to bottom.
Yeah, man, you touched pretty in depth on a couple of them, but overall, the reason to watch this fight card is the matchmaking is incredible. Other reasons not necessarily with the matchmaking here. It is Saturday afternoon. It's an early fight card because it's on Big Fox, and that's the reason right there. It's on Big Fox, regular Fox, so you can watch this G-Dang fight card with just bunny ears, old school bunny ears. At my apartment, I have some bunny ears that my parents probably bought in the 70s. They're just telescoping pieces of metal, right, that hook up to the back of the TV, and I can watch this fight card with those babies. So if you got a homie that's like, hey, man, you got one of them links so I can watch the fights tonight? Be like, bro, just grab your mama's bunny ears, hook them up, and you can watch this thing for free. Another reason I mentioned that it's middle of the afternoon, it's pretty early, and that just gives me a really good, excuse to drink a little beer at it's now 2:30 in the afternoon on a Saturday. So it gives me a good reason to do some day drinking. But yeah, so the fight card is incredible. Wes, what letter grade would you give the card from start to bottom straight away?
Start to bottom, probably without any judgment, I'd give it a B. It's a pretty mediocre card if you're going just by names. Stylistically, though, you have a few fights that match up pretty close and well for each other that should make for a pretty exciting fight. So I'm going to go with a B. But I think this card might bring a little bit more action than that.
Yeah, dude, I'm giving it a B+. I think that the matchups are incredible, and I would give it an A if just I want Cerrone to be the main event over Valentina versus Juliana Pena. I know I'm going to be met with a little bit of hate from a lot of the viewers here that I think that the boys should be above the girls in this one because the girls are going for a #1 contender spot. But just for me, Donald Cerrone is like the most exciting or one of the most exciting fighters on the UFC roster or in all of MMA today. Wes, do you have any reasons why maybe you shouldn't watch this fight card?
Shouldn't watch the fight card. I'd say if you're going probably, again, off names. Now, there are some decent names on this card, but if you were kind of a new fan coming onto the scene, I feel like Shevchenko and Pena are two people you wouldn't talk too much about just because they haven't had a big UFC career. Now, Pena did compete on The Ultimate Fighter. Shevchenko, though, she's pretty new to the UFC. Also, both of them have never really had a big knockout victory that has been praised or celebrated, to be able to show like a friend or a buddy that you're hanging out with at the bar, or just hanging out with one night. So I feel like just having that as your main event, it's not really the strongest main event if you're trying to pick up just a few people that are kind of new to the sport. You can earlier if you show some good highlights of Cerrone and Masvidal, probably even of some of Ngannou, because he's been climbing onto the scheme too. But I feel like for the main event, just the names probably will not capture the most attention to some people.
I'm going to give out no reasons to not watch this fight card. I think if you're a fight fan whatsoever, you're watching this damn fight card. I love it. I'm really excited about it, Wes. Let's start talking about our picks. Larry Anderson, I'm the man, baby. Yeah, you're pretty cool, Larry. Anyway, Wes, Valentina Bullet Shevchenko versus Juliana Pena. Valentina 13-2. Juliana is 9-2. The odds favor Shevchenko -160. Comeback on Pena +140. Who do you think wins this fight and gets a title shot against Amanda Nunes?
My pick for this one is Shevchenko. I think if this fight is going to take place on the feet, of course, Shevchenko is going to have the advantage. She's just so dynamic, especially with the strikes. She comes from a really prestigious Muay Thai background and has utilized that pretty well in all of her performances. The only time we ever really saw, let's say in the UFC career, in her UFC career, her struggle was getting taken down once by Sarah Kaufman kind of later in the fight, and also Amanda Nunes in the second round of that fight. She didn't really have, I feel like, the most experience being on her back and knowing what to do in that kind of situation. But I think if she's been working on that, especially going up against Juliana Pena, who excels at ground and pound and also excels at being able to take people down, I feel like Shevchenko is going to be able to pull out the victory here. Also, throughout the course of 25 minutes, since this is a 5-round main event, I think Shevchenko's cardio is going to hold up a little better than Pena's. And Shevchenko has also gone to the 5th round before, and that happened in her last fight with Holly Holm. So I think Shevchenko is going to pull out a decision victory in this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if Pena can take this fight to the ground and make it gritty and possibly get a finish early.
Right, yeah, Wes, I don't have really much to add to that, but to kind of build on your point about it being a 5-round fight and Shevchenko favoring her in the cardio department. Shevchenko has been training at Denver or higher in elevation. I think she's been up to like 6,100 in elevation, somewhere in Colorado, training for this fight. So that's one reason why she could have a cardio advantage here. For me, she's just a more well-rounded mixed martial artist. Yes, Juliana Pena does have a clear path to victory, and that's to get Valentina down and just, pardon my language, folks, but beat the shit out of her on the ground and maybe get her to expose her back and get that rear naked choke. But I have to pick the person who's more well-rounded, and that is Valentina Shevchenko. It might not be the most exciting fight ever if Valentina wins because she's not a finisher, but it could have a lot of ebbs and flows because you mentioned Juliana's going to look good early. She could get that early stoppage. Valentina's going to take over late. But Valentina, you know, she's not a finisher. She's not a really, really exciting fighter. Both these ladies are pretty damn good looking, so that's another reason to watch this fight card. So both you and I are on Valentina Shevchenko. Let's move to the co-main event, number 5, featherweight, welterweight, Donald Cowboy Cerrone versus Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. Donald 32-7, Jorge is 31-11. The odds favor Cerrone -146. Comeback on Masvidal +126. Wes, I feel like both guys have clear paths to victory here. Basically, it's Donald Cerrone with his extremely diverse kicking game, powerful, diverse with that department. Jorge is diverse with his hands, and he's better at boxing than Donald. Jorge does have some really good takedowns. Donald has really good jiu-jitsu on the ground. So both places, you know, in all areas where one guy's good at this area, his opponent has a really good counter for that exact area. But I think that because Masvidal sometimes takes time off in fights, and he might have a guy hurt. Even in Ellenberger, it looked like he was going to kind of take his foot off the gas for a brief moment there. Because he does that, I can't really expect him to stay focused for an entire 15-minute fight with a guy as diverse and as lengthy and powerful as Donald Cerrone. So I'm picking Donald to get a decision victory, basically by using his diverse lead leg to attack the body and head of Masvidal. We talked in the last fight about cardio issues. Cardio issues should not be an issue in this fight because both guys have been training at elevation to get ready for this fight. So I think that it could be high-paced action for all 15 minutes. It's my pick for fight of the night. Wes, who do you got? Masvidal, Cerrone.
Yeah, I think the cardio from both guys are going to hold up in this fight. So I'm actually going to be leaning towards a decision victory. In this fight, I think it's going to go to a decision. I think if we're going to see a stoppage early on, it's going to come from Masvidal. And you nailed it on the head. Masvidal, in his fights, he usually is able to get the fighters in trouble kind of early on. But as the fight progresses, he just kind of loses that instinct to go after the kill. I know at one point, I think he went numerous fights when he was getting victories, just going to a decision. And then he was able to knock out Cesar Ferreira, and that was at his debut, or not debut, but return to welterweight here in the UFC. Now, that was back, of course, in 2015. Masvidal has looked great at welterweight, but I think overall, if you're going to see somebody get a finish later on in the fight, I think that's going to be Cerrone. I think Cerrone, in those latter rounds, is just going to have that killer instinct continuously carry him throughout. I think some of the pressure is going to get to Masvidal later in that fight. Masvidal's best chance to win, I think, is going to come early on by stoppage. But I think if this one goes to a decision, I feel like Cerrone has a little bit of an advantage. I think he also has more ways to win. We have seen Cerrone take the fights to the ground. He's pretty good with his takedowns too, and being able to utilize some pretty decent ground and pound. So I think Cerrone is going to be able to get the victory in this one. I think he just has more ways to win, and he's my pick.
And we should mention that it is in Donald Cerrone's hometown. So if it goes to the judges, you know, the judges should be professionals, but they could lean Cerrone just for that reason. Anyway, let's move down to Andrei, the Pitbull Arlovski, number 7 heavyweight versus number 10 heavyweight Francis, the Predator Ngannou. Andrei Arlovski, 25-13 with 1 no contest. Francis Ngannou is 9-1. The odds are hugely in favor of the Predator, -400. Comeback on the Pitbull at +330. Wesley, the Pitbull or the Predator, young or new, or young or old?
I'm going to go young in this one. I feel like Andrei, he's just not the same guy that he used to be. And that comes a lot with age, too. You have to think about how old he is. Not only he's 37 years old, which is still kind of young, but when it comes to looking at his past in fighting, he's been around for years and years. Of course, he was the UFC heavyweight champion a long time ago, back in 2005. It's currently 2017, and he's lost 3 in a row. His chin is definitely not the same as it used to be. I haven't really been too impressed with Arlovski's UFC career. He came in, fought Brendan Schaub, won a decision in a fight that I thought he lost. Beat Travis Brown and Antonio Silva in kind of sloppy fights. Antonio's chin, of course, is faded. Won a close decision of Frank Mir, and then now he's lost 3 in a row. Still love Andrei Arlovski. Awesome guy and a great personality. But I think Ngannou, it's his time, has looked really impressive in all of his performances. And also he has a long reach, fights a little bit smarter in his fights, doesn't really go for the kill early on. He likes to wait and be patient. But we've seen that quite a bit throughout his career. So I'm going to go with Ngannou. I think he's going to be able to stop Arlovski in the second round due to probably him fatiguing and just the weak chin overall. So I've got Ngannou, the Predator, to be able to get the finish.
Robbie Rapp thinks that this will be Pitbull's last fight. Do you agree with that?
I think it will be, especially off a loss. I think if Pitbull wins, he's got a good chance, and we'll probably see him again because he is still just a notable name, and I feel like he wouldn't want to stop, especially if he's able to get a finish over somebody like Ngannou. So I think, but if Arlovski loses, I think this is it. It'll be 4 in a row.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. I think Arlovski's going down. He's lost 3 in a row already. He didn't look good in his victories prior to that. Francis Ngannou, we know him as this big, scary dude as Coral Lee and Michael Golson. The Predator looks like a beast. He looked like a beast in his last fight, but we think of him as this really heavy puncher. He's like a kickboxer at heart, right? But then in his last performance against Anthony Hamilton, when he busted out that Kimura, just muscled that other heavyweight straight to the ground and got that Kimura. He's a freak of nature. If it weren't the heavyweight division, people would be calling for USADA to take a look at this man. Basically, though, I do think that the Predator hits hugely hard, and Andrei's chin couldn't take a punch from anybody in the heavyweight division. And then the Predator hits like a mother effing truck. So yeah, we both agree. I'm going to take Francis in the first round, though. They're going to come out and just big swing in Johnsons, and one of them is going to go down. I think it will be the Pitbull. Wes, you mentioned that you liked Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres versus Jason the Kid Knight. Alex Caceres is 12-9. That's not a great record. 1 no contest. Jason Knight 18-2. The odds favor Jason Knight -145. Come back on Caceres at +125. Bruce Leroy, he's super fun to watch. He's super flowy out there. He has fantastic striking techniques, but it's little known that he's actually really good at jiu-jitsu. I think he trains. He's one of the coaches at jiu-jitsu at the MMA lab. So that's something to note here in this fight. But he doesn't do well when he's pressured. And Jason Knight in his last few fights has been all about that forward pressure. Knight's actually a pretty damn good grappler as well, has some pretty good takedowns, but he's just always going to be in his face and not let Bruce Leroy get off on those lengthy, beautiful strikes of his. I think the grittier fighter is going to win here, and that is Jason Knight. Wes, do you think grit or flash?
We actually agree on this one. I'm going to be siding with Jason Knight. I think also, I'll say this first, I talked about it before just a few minutes ago. I think this, for me, is going to be my pick for fight of the night. I think Cerrone versus Masvidal will be pretty good and probably a contender. But for me, I just think this fight could see a little bit more excitement on the feet just because both are so dynamic in what they throw, even though Cerrone and Masvidal are that way too. But I'm going to go with Knight and Caceres. I feel like this fight's a little bit underrated and a little underhyped. I like Knight in this one because I also feel like, in similarity to Cerrone when I was talking about him, just has more ways to win. I think Knight can definitely take this fight to the ground if he needs to, but he's also pretty intelligent off his back. He has a really good rubber guard and is able to control the posture of the fighter that's on top really, really well. So I won't be surprised if Jason Knight can possibly pull off a submission. Alex Caceres, throughout his UFC career, not just UFC career, but career in general, he's lost 5 fights by submission. So going up against a guy like Jason Knight, there's definitely the possibility we could see Knight get a finish, but I'm going to lean towards a decision. I don't think we're going to see too much action happen on the ground, but if it does happen, I think it'll be Knight having the better of Alex Caceres. If it's on the feet, though, that forward pressure, you said it yourself, Jason Knight is really, really good at performing it. Going up against anybody he's matched up against. And I think that might cause Caceres some trouble because once he's able to cut off the corners of Caceres, Caceres can't really do the dynamic stuff because he's so far pushed back against the cage. So I think that's what's going to see Jason Knight get probably a unanimous decision in this one. But if the fight goes to the ground, wouldn't be surprised to see a submission victory.
Sounds good to me, man. It's going to be a fun fight. I don't know if I see a submission coming from Jason Knight, but if that does happen, I'll definitely give you props for it. Let's move down to a fight where if there's a submission, I will be absolutely flabbergasted. Nate the Great Marquardt versus Smiling Sam Alvey. It should be noted that the fights start on UFC Fight Pass in 15 minutes, so we should probably hustle up a little bit. Sorry, folks, for getting started late. Nate, I'll do my pick for this one fast. Nate the Great, he's more diverse than Smiling Sam, but Nate the Great has a terrible chin. He's not good against southpaws. Sam Alvey has a good chin, huge southpaw left hand. I think that Smiling Sam is going to land that big old left hand on Nate the Great's chin and win very early on in this fight. What do you think, Wes?
I'm going to be going with Sam Alvey too. Marquardt's chin, of course, it's not the same. He's been knocked out 5 times throughout his career, and a lot recently. We've seen him rock a lot recently too. I think Alvey, I don't think he's going to land off an initial exchange. I think what's going to happen is Marquardt's going to exchange and try to go for just a big knockout because he still does have that power. But I think what we're going to see is Sam Alvey be conservative and wait to land that left-hand counter and then rock Marquardt at some point in the fight. I think it's going to happen in the second round. So my pick, Sam Alvey by second-round knockout.
We have not disagreed yet, Wes. That's kind of scary.
I know it's funny, but maybe we'll disagree on some of these other ones. We'll see.
All right, Rafael Assunção, Aljamain, the Funkmaster Sterling. Assunção 23-5, the Funkmaster 12-1. The odds favor Assunção -138, Sterling +118. It should be noted that Sterling has a 5-inch reach advantage. Wes, who do you got in this one?
My pick is Assunção. I don't have Sterling in this one. I feel like when in comparison to their styles, I think Assunção just excels a little bit more. We know that Assunção did take a long time after his fight with Brian Caraway, came back and fought TJ and lost a unanimous decision. But then again, TJ fought Dominic Cruz and almost won the title. And, of course, TJ was the champion. So knowing that, I think Assunção, I mean, he did have a huge win streak, does have a win over TJ. I think his skill set is just a little better than Sterling's right now in Sterling's career. But you have to remember, Sterling's still pretty young. In his fight game, too, he's only fought 13 times, and he's only 27. So I think we'll see big things from Sterling later on. But I'm going to go with Assunção by unanimous decision.
I'm going via decision as well, but I agree with Jack Mooney. I'm picking Aljamain the Funkmaster Sterling for a few reasons. Number one is that we've been talking about the elevation a lot here today, Wes, and Assunção never left Georgia, I'm pretty sure it was, right up until maybe like fight week when he came. Sterling did his last 2 weeks of his fight camp in, I want to say Englewood, Colorado, somewhere at about 6,000 feet elevation. He was training with Chris Camozzi, guys like that at X Factor Muay Thai, some shit like that. So he's been training at elevation for a couple of weeks. I think he'll be a little bit more acclimated. I mentioned that reach advantage at the beginning. Assunção, he throws short strikes. He's a really fast counter puncher, but he likes when guys charge in with their own punches, and then he will counter with quick hooks and some straights too, but mostly counter punches in tight. Sterling is really good at his kicking game, so he could kick Assunção from a distance, and Assunção won't be able to counter as well. Also, the Funkmaster, when he fought Brian Caraway, he had Caraway and he had his back. He was back mounted with a body lock on him. And it was so dominant in that first round when he fought Caraway that Brian Stan was talking about a 10-8 round against Caraway for the Funkmaster. Now, MMA math doesn't work, but that's just a huge feather in your cap. You can control Brian Caraway that good on the ground. And you mentioned that Sterling's this young guy. He has a lot of upside, and who knows how much better he has gotten since his last time out. So I do think that Sterling is going to get a decision. Moving down, Bobby Nashty. Nashty? What a stupid nickname. Nash versus Lee the Leech Jingliang. Both these guys kind of throw wildly. I've watched a lot of film on Bobby Nash. He's good with getting takedowns with ground and pound. In the striking department, he throws pretty damn wildly without much defense, and he's pretty untested. This is obviously his UFC debut. I just don't know if being that wild against Li Jingliang is going to behoove him in this fight, and maybe he'll come in with some octagon jitters and what have you. But I don't feel that great about Bobby Nash's skill set. I watched one of his fights from, actually, it was a long time ago, but he actually got taken down and was ground and pounded to oblivion for a little bit in a fight. I forget who was it against, but if you're getting ground and pounded and almost finished by guys at that level, I think Li Jingliang is going to be able to handle you. But I'm picking another decision. I'm picking Li Jingliang. He'll be able to ward off the takedown attempts of Bobby Nash, and he has a little bit better striking than the goofy striker in Nashty Nash. What do you think, Wes?
To be honest, I didn't watch any fight film on Bobby Nash, so I'm glad you kind of said some stuff about him. The only thing I did know, I knew two things. I knew, one, he was a wrestler, and two, I knew that he's fought nobody really notable. So besides that, Li Jingliang, the Leech, I'll call him the Leech for this fight. Very, very exciting fighter to watch. I feel like that this is definitely going to be the biggest test of Bobby Nash's career, and I don't know how he's going to do taking damage. And I heard you say that Bobby Nash kind of throws wild with his strikes. So if Lee can keep the fight standing, I think that what he's going to do is be able to get a knockout in this one. Jingliang's, his striking has improved dramatically. We've seen him finish two in his UFC career. 2 of his 3 wins have come by knockout, and they both came in the first round. So I'm going to go with the Leech. I think he's going to get a first-round stoppage in this one. I just don't know enough about Bobby Nash to be confident, but it sounds like Bobby Nash does have the ability to take this fight down and possibly get a decision in this one, but I'm going to go with the Leech.
Bobby does have some pretty damn good ground and pound as well. And I take back that he might have octagon jitters because he's like ultra confident. That's why he throws wildly. He's just super confident in his entire fighting game. And that's why, sorry, I'm being redundant. That's why he throws wildly, because he has a huge belief in himself. Now, Henrique Frankenstein da Silva versus Big Swingin' Johnson, Jordan Johnson. Henrique is 12-1. The Big Swingin' Johnson is 6-0. I'll let you take this one first. What do you got, Wes?
So I originally had Luis Henrique da Silva. Then I kind of rethought about it, and I'm going with Jordan Johnson. I've heard some good things about Jordan, especially when it comes to his wrestling. He was a Division I All-American wrestler, also did some freestyle wrestling here and there. I think he went to the University of Iowa, That may be wrong. Don't you can correct me on that, but I can't really remember what school he went to, but I think that's what it was. Now, I think he's still undefeated in his UFC career. We also saw him be the first RFA champion, or excuse me, not the first, the last RFA light heavyweight champion, winning a unanimous decision in that one in his final. That was, I think, the last fight he was in, and that fight went 5 rounds. So now we know just from watching that fight, he's going to definitely have the cardio to be able to go a full 5 rounds. Henrique da Silva, he usually starts slow, but he continues to fight slow throughout the fight, and the people that he has fought have tended to fade it. And I don't think we're going to see Jordan Johnson fade in this one. I think Jordan Johnson's going to get the unanimous decision in this one. I think his wrestling is going to be too much for da Silva, and he's just going to be able to control Silva on the ground and be able to score that unanimous decision.
You're right, man. D1 wrestler at the University of Iowa, 2-time University All-American Freestyle Wrestling. And yet, RFA light heavyweight world champion. So that is a huge accolade. Wrestling for Iowa is one thing. 2-time All-American for Iowa, that's another thing. He is really good with takedowns. He's ferocious with his ground and pound. Henrique da Silva, that's why Henrique da Silva is a pretty hefty underdog, is because Jordan Johnson, really good with wrestling. Da Silva is not good with his takedown defense. Let me see the odds. That's not huge. Big swing in Johnson is -195. Comeback on Da Silva at +170. Henrique should be better on the feet, but like you mentioned, he starts really slow and he's kind of wooden. So he's really hittable. And it wasn't that long ago that the Bear Jew tore him to pieces. Maybe he's making I think he's making a pretty damn quick turnaround. I'd have to look it up. But anyway, yeah, I think that big swing in Johnson is going to get Henrique da Silva down and ground and pound him right through the canvas. I'm picking a late stoppage for Jordan Johnson. Moving down, we got 7 minutes. Let's go to the fight that's happening in 7 minutes so we can make sure to get that one in. Jason Nicoy Gonzalez versus JC Cottrell, the superstar. This one, Cottrell, probably the better grappler. Jason Gonzalez is better on the feet, but Jason Gonzalez is really wooden, very, very rigid in his movement. He does bounce around a lot, but he's super rigid. He looks like he has a bad case of anxiety every time he's been in the octagon or in the cage whatsoever. JC Cottrell is loose. He's like Gumby, like Clayton. No, Cassius Clay Collard. JC Cottrell with his flowy movement kind of reminds me of Clay Collard, and Jason Gonzalez is super, super rigid. Now, Jason Gonzalez does have some fantastic takedown defense, so I don't know if JC could get the fight to the ground and utilize his really good grappling skills and get yet another submission victory. I think that Cottrell has a bunch of submission victories under his belt. But anyway, Gonzalez, his record's pretty padded. 2 of his last 3 opponents have a combined record of 0-14, so that is bad. That is really, really bad. And also because Jason is so rigid, he's really hittable, and it makes him easy to knock out because he's so stiff and like seems scared the whole time. Cottrell does have some pretty good striking. He's kind of wild like Nash D. Nash. So I could see JC Cottrell getting a knockout here because of everything that I've already said. But in the end, I do think that Gonzalez, because he has the takedown defense, could ward off Cottrell's takedowns, and because he does have a little better striking, he throws more punches and bunches, and he throws a jab over and over and over and over again. I do favor Gonzalez's skills, but I question his chin. I'm picking Gonzalez, but I'm not confident.
I question his chin as well. I actually didn't see either of Gonzalez or Cottrell's last fights when they happened live, and I haven't gone back to watch them. So I don't really bad saying that. I just don't know a lot about either man. But the one thing I do know is that they both have some pretty good jiu-jitsu on the ground. But when it comes to the wrestling, I think Gonzalez might have the edge just because he's able to avoid takedowns a lot better. Cottrell gets taken down pretty easily in his fights. Just looking at the statistic, Caceres took down Cottrell 7 times in that fight. Now, of course, Caceres is very, very elite, an elite wrestler and also an elite grappler. But still, that shows signs of holes in Cottrell's game when we see some action take place in the clinch and also just takedowns in general. I think I've got Cottrell. I have him picked on UFC Pick'em. Don't really have an explanation as to why. Between his performance with Caceres, I saw some of the highlights, by the way, and seeing how fast Gonzalez got knocked out by Drew Dober, I think exactly like you said it. I question his chin, and I think Cottrell might be able to get the victory. I have Cottrell by a unanimous decision.
Let's go to the next fight. Alexandre Pantoja, the Cannibal versus Eric Showtime Shelton. Pantoja trains with Nova União and Black House. He has super powerful hands and vicious kicks. He throws pretty wild. They're like the same age, or Pantoja is 1 year older than Shelton, but he has been fighting for 10 years, and he's a savvy veteran. He has really good fight IQ. He's a very diverse guy. He has six victories by KO, 6 victories by submission, I think 2 by decision. He's super explosive, and he's already defeated some guys in the top of this division that aren't in the UFC, so that's something to note. Also something to note, both guys are off the season of The Ultimate Fighter, where Tim Elliott was on that season, and Eric Shelton, gave Tim Elliott a really good fight. Was doing really good on the feet, was putting Tim in some bad predicaments on the ground as well, looking for submissions and having dominant control. Eric Shelton, you could argue that he beat Tim Elliott in that 2-round fight. When I watched it, I didn't know who won. So there's that. I thought it was going to go to a 3rd round. I gave 1 round apiece, but nonetheless, Eric Shelton, he has been training with, I think, Team Elevation in preparation for this fight. Pantoja, I don't think he's been training at Elevation. Eric Shelton, he's as diverse as Pantoja. He might not be as powerful with his striking, but he is probably more explosive. And because Shelton's been training at Elevation, because he's younger in fight years, I'm going to pick Eric Shelton to get a decision here. I think he'll be able to keep himself out of the bad predicaments that Pantoja is going to put him in, and will just kind of wear Pantoja out. And in the end, he'll be the quicker guy in the 3rd round, which will get him the victory, 29-28. So what do you got, the Cannibal or Showtime?
I won't give too much of an explanation here. I'm going to go with Pantoja. I feel like the dynamic ability of Pantoja is going to be able to get him the victory here. Also, a lot of recent performances in his career, we've seen him do a lot of stuff on the ground and utilizes some great jiu-jitsu. I think Pantoja is going to be able to get this fight to the ground if he needs to. But I'm not really sure. It's a toss-up for me. I didn't watch the season of The Ultimate Fighter. Not my fault, though. I blame my college because we don't have Fox Sports 1. But I'm done complaining. I'm going to pick Pantoja by a unanimous decision to be able to probably just overwhelm Eric on the ground, and also maybe have the advantage on the feet. We'll have to see, but unfortunately I don't know that much about either man.
No problem. Moving on. Marcos Rogério de Lima Pejao versus Jeremy Grizzly Kimball. Something to note is last night Chitty Chitty Bang Bang defeated Melvin Gillard. I'm pretty sure that Jeremy Kimball has defeated Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, so that's something to note here. But he is coming in on super short notice to a fight at Elevation, but I don't think that it'll matter. I'm trying to look it up quickly here. Marcos Rogério de Lima, all of his fights end in the 1st round. So his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights have ended in the 1st round, and then 3 before, 1 that went to a draw. So basically what I'm saying here is this fight is going to be a 1-round banger. Both guys swing pretty hard. I think that Kimball could get the fight to the ground. He has shown takedowns in the past. I'm pretty sure that's how he defeated Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, but Chitty has minimal takedown defense. Ultimately, I think it's going to be a slobber knocker for a short period of time, and I favor Marcos Rogério because he does hit harder and because he has been tested at this level of competition. You got Grizzly or Pejao?
I've got Pejao. Pretty much the exact same reason as you. All of Kimball's losses, though, have come by submission. Lima does have some submission victories on his resume, too. 3, actually. If you want to be statistical, also beat Clint Hester in that fight by submission in the 1st round. Now, that was his last victory. He has lost his last 2, De Lima, that is, by submission. That might be where we see Kimball have the advantage if he's able to possibly get a guillotine choke, if Rogério wants to take it to the ground like he did when he fought Hester. But honestly, I think Lima's going to have the advantage wherever this fight goes. You pick the 1st round. I'm going to pick a 2nd round and make it interesting, just so we have a little disagreement. But I'm definitely going Rogério de Lima in this one. He's a lot harder at hitting, and I think he's going to be able to get the job done.
Okay, the last fight we need to talk about is as close to a striker versus a grappler matchup that we're ever going to get in modern-day men's MMA. The main event is basically striker versus grappler and Shevchenko versus Pena, but here we've got Eric Spicely Zebrina Zabrinha. What the hell kind of nickname is that, brother? He's a grappler through and through. Alessio Di Chirico Manzo is he's well-rounded. He's not a striker per se, but what do you got, Wes? The striker or the grappler?
I'm going to go with Eric Spicely in this one. I counted him out in both of his fights, of course. When he fought Sam Alvey, he did get choked out, but then came back to beat Thiago Santos, was able to take the fight down to the ground, and Santos wasn't really that intelligent to know what to do to stand up, because he usually, all of his fights take place on the feet, and he's able to stop everybody. But Eric Spicely was able to get the submission in that one in the first round. Did compete on the Ultimate Fighter. I think got knocked out by Andrew Sanchez in the first round pretty early on. That was season 23. But I think Eric Spicely, in comparison to Di Chirico, I think when it comes to the grappling department, we're going to see Eric be able to take this fight to the ground and just control it wherever it goes. Be able to probably be the first man to finish Di Chirico, always hard to say his name. What was the dream catcher? I don't know what you said his nickname was now, but it sounds kind of weird. Zabrina? I don't know what that means. Maybe it's the same thing. But I'm going to go with Eric Spicely. I think he's going to be able to get a second-round submission in this one. And possibly, maybe we'll see him get a top 15 next, since he already does have a win over a former top 15 in Thiago Santos.
I'm going with Alessio Di Chirico because he does have some pretty damn good takedown defense. And if Eric Spicely cannot get the fight to the ground, he will just keep pursuing that takedown. And then Di Chirico could be able to counter him on Eric Spicely's way in. But, Wes, I do agree that if Spicely gets the fight to the ground, he could definitely submit Di Chirico. He's already done it to I forget the guy's name. Why am I blanking so hard on
Thiago Santos?
Yeah, Thiago Santos, yeah. So I just don't think that Spicely's going to be able to get Di Chirico down early here, and Di Chirico's going to be able to piece him up on the feet, and that's pretty much it. I don't know if Di Chirico's going to get a late stoppage because Spicely will just become more and more desperate as he can't get that takedown. But I have counted out Spicely every single time, so I could be wrong again, but I've got Di Chirico on my UFC pick'em via decision. Wes, let's predict who's going to get the performance bonuses. We already gave out our fight of the nights. I'm giving mine to Cerrone Masvidal. You're giving yours to Caceres Knight. Who do you think gets performance of the night?
All right, performance of the night. So it'll be for the guys that I picked. I picked Francis Ngannou. I think he's definitely going to get a performance victory over stopping Andrei Arlovski. And the second performance is going to go to Sam Alvey for his knockout over Nate Marquardt.
Damn it. Yeah. That's probably it. You're probably right. So, yes, Francis Ngannou and Sam Alvey. I feel like they're most likely to get stoppages on this card. And so stoppages go, or performance bonuses go to people who get stoppages. And that's pretty much it. So that's all we've got for today. Thank everyone so much for joining us. We'll be back right here after the fight card is over to do a post-fight show. So I look forward to you joining me then. Once again, I appreciate it. You can follow Wes on Twitter at AllThatMMA. You can follow me on Twitter at FlyingBrianJ. Once again, I appreciate it. I'm redundant. Anyway, we're out of here. We're going to go watch the first fight of the night between Jason Gonzalez and JC Cottrell. We'll see you after the fight card. Namaste.